Historic tax credits can be a great assistance in certain kinds of rehabilitation if the property is an income producing unit. People would want to investigate this to see if it's a good fit for them, so that if their income types give them the opportunity to redeem the credits, and if the project that they're working on would benefit from having historic tax credits. In Ohio, we combine the federal historic tax credit that can be from 25 to 35%, depending on the jurisdiction that the building is in. The federal credit is essentially the same everywhere in the United States, and it's ideal for operating in certain kinds of income-producing properties. There are also state credits available, Ohio being one of them. In Ohio, we have an application called the Optic application, which generates between 25 and 35% of the cost of the rehabilitation. So if you are looking at a project in Ohio for an income-producing property, then you can combine the federal credits of 20% plus the state credits of 25 to 35% for a total optimum of 55% of the cost of the rehabilitation. The large projects get most of the attention of the projects that are generating historic tax credits. But there are other categories also for an intermediate project and a small category project, which don't tend to generate the headlines of the big projects like the arcade. The small and intermediate projects all follow the same rules, but they have discrete pools of money that are reserved for them in the Ohio program. The Ohio program is competitive on a scoring basis, and whether you get those credits or not depends on the score of the application that you submit. What we do is work with people so that they can understand and realistically move forward with a historic tax credit project for small and intermediate projects. The large projects are usually generating so much in the way of the credits that they're beyond an individual or even a mid-sized company to be able to absorb. So they have ways of exchanging the credits for cash into the project. With small and intermediate projects, it's more viable for an independent, small operation to utilize a historic tax credit. As a homeowner, you're not allowed to use the historic tax credits on the house that you live in. However, as an investor with perhaps a double next door to you, you could actually restore the double next to you as an income producing property and realize the tax credits on that. It's even possible after 5 years of safe harbor that you could move into that double as your house. So in a kind of a crazy way, people on a street might be able to buy doubles next to them, restore them, and then move into them and restore other houses. The way it works is that a small scale project like that is actually pretty easy and straightforward, and most people can utilize the historic tax credits that arise from that. And I'm not going to propose to be a tax attorney to advise people on that. Anyone looking at this should go have a conversation with their tax attorney, find a specialist, and look at their individual circumstances. It's also a situation where sometimes we're dealing with a group of friends, et cetera, and I call that the friends and family package, because you can receive the federal credits, be awarded the credits, and then redeem the credits as a collection of individuals without going into all of the really complex structures that are sometimes utilized in projects like the arcade.
We started looking for houses in March of 2020. So when everybody else was locking down for COVID, Danny and I were out searching for a house. So a friend of ours that owned the house called us up and let us know it was available. And we started from that point. We could tell the first time that we saw the house that there was a lot of work that needed to be done.
Yeah, I mean, just the brush on the outside, you could not see the house at all, from the honeysuckle to the mulberry trees and all the overgrowth of it. You couldn't see anything. And plus the ivy, everything was growing into the house. So it was, we knew we had a lot of work ahead of us. You know.
Yeah, well, we used a 203K plan to actually purchase the house and to renovate. So when we started looking for houses, we actually did not look for a house that we needed to rehab. We were looking at turnkeys and we can move in. But we really liked the property. We liked the location. We liked the neighborhood. It has a lot of historical significance, and so we wanted to be a part of that. So at first we were thinking that we had to buy the house and then go out and get a loan for the rehab, and we weren't sure how that worked. And some of our friends out in Xenia were actually doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, well, when you got a house, like when we talked about before, the best part of having a 203K loan is you get to package the mortgage with the construction that's being done on the house. So it's helpful to do that. It's affordable to do that way.
Well, there's a lot leading up to actually working the 203K plan. So first of all, you find a property that you want to rehab, and you go in just like any other house and you have an inspection. We had the house completely inspected, top to bottom, to find out exactly what are we looking at. Do we have a good roof? Do we have a good foundation? Every time we talked to the contractor, they said, or the inspector, they said, we have a great bones to this house. It's going to need a lot of work though. So once you get that established and you get an idea of, first of all, how much the seller wants to sell the house, and then how much it's going to take to rehab the house, then you can come up with your loan amount. So we came up with about $200,000 was the price of the house and the rehab. So once you get that identified, then you start going out and you start looking at 203K consultants. Okay, so you're not in this project by yourself. You're working with other people to help guide you through it, which really, really helps the situation. They are deemed by the federal government, so they are going to be working on your behalf as far as the buyer and as the person that's putting the money into it. And they're also going to help with the contractor in identifying what needs to be fixed, how it's going to be fixed, a budget. So all of that is done with the 203K.
Yeah, and the consultants, like an ombudsman, as Jefferson said, to repeat that again, they will, if the contractor is too high on the budget, they are skilled to know what the basic price range and price points are. If they're too low on that, they will also point that out, because they'll think, why is that so low? So they will scrutinize every part of that, and they will make sure that, of course, they're not responsible for any major conflicts that may happen between the contractor or the client, but they will make sure that everything goes smoothly, things will be paid in a timely fashion, and they're educated, so they do help the client, if they're not experienced in that, know kind of like what the ins and outs are, what to expect, and when they come in and check things out, that they are that everybody's on track. They let the client know that, so there's so nothing falls through the cracks, or although still things can, but they still help that a lot.
Yeah. After you get your 203K consultant, and I think we both would agree, interview a lot of them. Go out, find the list of 203 consultants, interview every single one of them. I think that's something that we could have done a better job of at the beginning. However, we ended up with a really nice consultant, and she helped us through everything we needed. So once you have identified your consultant, then you go to the banks and you start shopping for your loan. It's not a conventional loan like you would think. A lot of banks, matter of fact, we went to Fifth Third, and it was great banking. I have nothing against Fifth Third, but they just don't have a real strong 203K mortgage department. So finally, we did go with a mortgage company that the 203K consultant had recommended, and they have worked with them in the past on how to navigate that loan. Okay.
So, and what they will do, their client will bring in contractors, that they would be interested in, and then they bring them in, and then they are interviewed on their skills on dealing. Your contractor needs to be also skilled in dealing with a 203K loan. So the consultant will deal with the contractors and kind of interview them and kind of go over that. So you basically kind of weed out what contractors will or what are the best contractors for it. And obviously, you, as a lot of people have heard, just because someone is cheapest does not necessarily make them the best. So the consultant makes sure that the price points again on that, to repeat that again, are within the parameters of what supplies and labor is. So they're checking that stuff out as well. No, so you said, does the contractor submit the cost? All that before you even start the project is all on a sheet. It's all bidded out. It's all lined item. Every detail of it is line item. There is a miscellaneous line item for like a 10% cost of unforeseen things and things like that, but all that is mapped out. Obviously, if we, as clients, said we want this, this, and this, we can do whatever we want, but that's an extra on top of that.
So when we started with getting to that point about how much it's going to cost and this, we put everything down that we wanted on this house. Even if there was no way that we didn't think we were ever going to get it, we just did pie in the sky. What would we like to live with? What can we do without? But mostly it was like, just throw everything down on that. And then it was a report that the 203K consultant had put together. And then what is really nice about that is that we can send that same report to every single contractor to say, this is what we want to have done. So every single person is looking at a document, they are understanding what your expectations are, and they can also evaluate to find out how much they're going to invest in it.
Well, actually, years ago, before we lived in Dayton, I taught a class in historic preservation at Bowling Green State University. So I knew about those, and it was going to be a massively expensive project. So I just went online and looked into exactly what the requirements were in trying to qualify for those credits so we could get some money back to help us with the renovation. Well, it's the federal government's program, actually. And so you can find the information about it online, but I think one thing that somebody that might be interested in using tax credits would be helpful for them to know is that even though the federal government, through the Park Service, created this program, and it's been around for a long time, is the one, they actually administer the program through the Ohio Historical Society. So everybody that you're working with one-on-one during the project, you're going to be dealing with at the state level in Columbus. And I feel like as far as federal programs go, it is one type of program that's pretty straightforward. So once you find your way to the historic tax credit program and go to the federal site, it'll direct you to the Ohio State Preservation Office, and you just learn about it, and it's really not as complicated as it might seem. Thinking back on things that became little snags along the way, my best advice for somebody getting involved is when you start, you have to take pictures of your property inside and out of absolutely everything. So when you go in the property, you want to take pictures of all four walls of every single room. And the reason I emphasize the picture taking beginning is because it's just so easy to forget something. And then you've done it and you don't have any evidence of what you've done, and that's really what your project is being determined. The money you get is being determined on being able to prove that the things that you did, especially changes, are things that the Ohio State Preservation Officer can approve. And if he doesn't have something to see, the before picture, it's going to be a lot harder. So pictures are everything. And then the second thing I probably would recommend is you feel a little bit insecure maybe at the beginning when you start filling out all the paperwork that they require. There are 3 phases. And it's in the second phase. They first have to approve that your property is significant. And that's usually not that hard if you live in a historic district. You have to write up a little paragraph narrative about the style of the architecture, things like that. That's easy to do. But then you get to the second phase, and it's after you have to hire an architect to do floor plans of both the before and the after. Now, I'm guessing there will be some renovators who don't have an after. They're probably just going to go in and just restore everything as is. But in our case, it had been a 4-unit, and some of the floor plans for these apartments, because it has to be an investment property. So you have to have a floor plan and a rental that's going to be able to be used by the tenant that you're going to rent to. So we had to do some pretty significant floor plan changes. So that's the part also that you feel a little insecure about, because all these pictures that you've taken, you have a architectural plan, and then you have your photograph, and you have to label your photograph and number and label them in a way that you transfer the label to the room with an arrow. So you have to be meticulous about that. And so my advice is, you do have to be meticulous, but don't be intimidated. It's not as hard as it seems when you first look at it. Just take the process step by step. They have a good explanation, good examples. When you have questions, call them before you do something that destroys evidence. Yeah, I want to talk about how you get the money in general, because you're getting two kinds of funds. And what happened for us at the end, we're all done. We got part 3 approved, so you have to have part 1 approved, then part 2, then part 3. You've got the credit. Now you have to find a tax accountant who knows how to do the credit. And I assumed, oh, that's easy. This program's been around for a long time. You know, the state office or the federal office probably can tell me what I need to do in order to apply for the credits through my taxes. They couldn't even tell me that. It was amazing to me. So then I went to our own personal accountant, because we have rental properties. So your accountant you're using to do your taxes for your rentals should know, right? No, they didn't know either. So again, I'm driving up Linden Avenue to go to Kroger one day, and I see this tax office that I've been passing for 20 years, actually. And I thought, well, I don't have anything to lose. I'm just going to go in here. And I walked in, and they gave me one of their accountants that had been one of the owners of the business. And he sat me down in his office, and he goes, well, I don't know how to do that, but Taylor knows how to do it. So they had a young guy, a young tax accountant that was one of their employees, really sharp guy. We hit it off right away. And he took me to Taylor's office, and Taylor, oh yeah, I know, and he went through the whole thing. So we make our appointment with Taylor, and Taylor worked with us for, I'm going to guess on this one, what the amount was, maybe 20 or 30,000. So every year now, Taylor, our accountant, he has to take that pot of money, that amount of money off of your pot that is sitting there, that the government has said you have. And so you get all your taxes done, and he takes the part of the pot that takes you down to 0. So each year you're going to have something left over. It might take 5 years for you to use that entire pot. I think it was 20,000. So you have to find somebody that knows how to do that. And so anybody that might be listening now, please call me. Taylor's amazing. And he did some other amazing things with some other properties we had not related to tax credits.